Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Tim Van Meer, and I'm the VP of Customer Growth here at Ally Care. I'm thrilled to be joined by Rob Snyder, Chief Technology Officer at Avid Health at Home. He brings over 3 decades of experience in home-based care, including senior leadership roles at various organizations, getting his hands into pretty well everything, whether it's writing home care software code, being responsible for HIPAA security and privacy, managing billing, payroll, compliance, and data analytics teams. Rob's work focuses on using technology to enhance care quality, operational efficiency, and outcomes for clients receiving support at home. At Avid Health at Home, Rob and team have built Avid with a technology first mindset from day one. And they're a great example of what scaling smarter actually looks like in practice. Rob, thanks so much for being here. Really, really excited for the conversation.
Pleasure's all mine, Tim. Thanks so much.
All right, so some brief housekeeping items before we jump into today's discussion. Today's webinar will be approximately 45 minutes, including some Q&A at the end. All attendees will be muted and have their cameras off, as you've probably noticed. Questions can be submitted via the Q&A button on your screen at the bottom of Zoom. So grab that if you're wanting to ask a question. We'll take some time at the end to actually answer those Q&A questions live. And if you'd like to direct your question to a specific panelist, whether Rob or I or both of us, please address that in the actual question itself. If we don't have time to answer all questions, don't worry. A member of our team will follow up afterwards via email to get you those responses. And as usual, the webinar recording will be emailed to you within 48 hours. So for those who are joining and maybe are not familiar with Ally Care, let me quickly introduce Ally Care. Ally Care is an operating system for home-based care, supporting the entire client lifecycle for a provider, from intake, assessments, care planning, scheduling, visit optimization, and verification. We did the whole gamut. Now, our focus is to help agencies save time, ultimately improve care quality, and operate more efficiently. Whether it's automating tasks or servicing insights, AI technology is built into the platform to better support outcomes ultimately at scale. We're really excited today for the discussion as Avid Health at Home has been a valued user of Ally Care since their launch in 2023. And Avid is an innovative, quality-focused, and data-driven home care company serving communities across North Carolina, Illinois, and Michigan, providing specialized services to help their clients remain in their homes, living independently with grace. And with that, let's ultimately jump into the actual agenda for today. So this is how we're going to spend our 45 minutes. We'll start with a quick look at market trends, challenges and opportunities, and why growth can be so hard in today's environment. And for those joining us, you know that all too well. Then we'll walk through Avid's tech-enabled growth strategy and the M&A journey they've been on, how they launched in 2023, as I'd mentioned earlier, with a clear operating model and how technology ultimately underpins their strategy and everything that Rob and team does. From there, we'll actually concentrate about building an integrated tech stack that supports growth, how Avid themselves have used a connected set of tools to streamline operations and support everyone from the families, caregivers, back office teams. We'll explore how Avid is looking at AI strategy and looking at adoption, including the early work that they've been doing. And then finally, we'll also leave that end of time Q&A, as I mentioned, as well. So to get things started, home-based care organizations are being asked to grow faster while doing more with less. And many of you are feeling that pressure every day. You're juggling workforce challenges, reimbursement and margin pressure, and a lot of manual, fragmented workflows that weren't really designed to scale. What we're seeing is that the organizations pulling ahead are the ones that are using specific tools, whether it's AI, it's intelligent workflows, it's maybe some level of automation to reduce friction for staff and clients and ultimately free up capacity for some of that work. So today we're going to unpack how Avid Health at Home is specifically doing that. But before we jump to the discussion, as you've probably seen pop up on the screen, we're going to do a poll. When you think about scaling your home care organization, which challenges feel the most limiting today? Operational bottlenecks, things like intake, scheduling, authorization, billing, as you see on the screen here, workforce capacity and retention, fragmented technology and data silos, or other. And if there's something else that's top of mind for you, please feel free to put it into that open text question. We'll give you a few seconds to respond, and then we'll take a look at the results together. Okay. Great. So thanks for weighing in, everyone. It looks like we're seeing a lot of you selecting workforce capacity and retention. So 62% They answered workforce capacity and retention. 13 out of 21 of you. The operational bottlenecks, intake, scheduling, authorizations, and billing is another big section as well. So whether it's operational bottlenecks, the workforce constraints, or fragmented tools, it all shows up as friction when you're trying to scale. Um, Rob, you know what? I'd love to use this as our jumping off point and jump into some questions. So when you look specifically for you, Rob, when you look across the market today, what are the biggest forces shaping home-based care growth?
Thanks, Tim. I would say the top three are number one, labor, the availability, the increasing costs associated with that, being able to retain labor. I'd say number two, revenue cycle management and efficiency, particularly in the face of the reimbursement challenges we all face. And then those operational bottlenecks, both the ones caused by key staff who have too much in their heads that's not in the company's systems, and those that are caused by the siloed workflows that don't integrate well with other related processes.
Awesome. And where are you seeing organizations get stuck from a workflow and technology perspective? You've worked in multiple places, you've seen multiple different sort of environments. So we'd love for you to answer that as well.
Sure, sure. I mean, all those forces can be addressed by improved workflows and better technology, but most people don't like change. And so I see organizations trying to solve those problems by trying to take an easier route, by adding more people rather than looking at those workflows and tech to find better solutions. You have to be willing to think differently and to be ready to make changes as problems arise. It's a cultural mindset, really. It comes from the top down. Your leaders have to believe it, support it, expect it, and be willing to pay for it.
Mm. I imagine now thinking of from Avid vantage point and that cultural change that you just mentioned. What are the most pressing challenges you're solving for? So workforce reimbursement, complexity of services, something else. Like what are you really focusing in on?
Sure. Our top couple of things really, workforce, of course, biggest issue. The rising cost of OpEx versus our reimbursement rates, always a challenge. But helping our teams keep their focus on the opportunities we have for growth. We tackle those challenges, all of them, really, in a few ways. We provide actionable dashboards for our teams to be able to quickly review and act upon from the top management all the way down to our front level teams in the offices. We review and we improve our workflows, and we implement more ways to let our tech free up our teams for real action. And I'm very excited now that we are adding AI into our environment.
What I'm hearing is a mix of growth ambition and very real operational constraints where you're setting up things to be able to empower your teams. It's great. So let's move into growth strategy and the M&A portion of today's discussion and how at the end of the day your organization has placed some importance on leading with technology front and center from day one. So before we zoom back into specifically Avid's story and growth story, I want to ground this part of our discussion into what many of you on the call today are seeing in your own markets and seeing as a backdrop for why tech-enabled, workflow-driven growth matters so much right now. So we've all watched the M&A activity increase across home-based care over these last few years. And that has a few big implications for all of us. So first, it creates more competition. You're not just competing with the agency down the street anymore. You're competing with larger, in some cases, better capitalized platforms that are entering or consolidating the markets that folks are in. Second, it drives more density as roll-ups and regional platforms form. They're layering more volume into the same geographies, which raises the bar on how efficiently each organization can operate to protect the margin that they do have. And then third, it sharpens the focus on execution and quality. In the market with some buyers and more options, the organizations that stand out are the ones that can prove they run tight operations, deliver consistent quality, and can scale without things breaking. Um, and maybe to lead into a bit of that as well, Capstone Partners, a mid-market investment bank based in Boston, I believe, summed it up well in this quote. So as we look towards 2026, buyers are leaning much more heavily on proof of execution, not just growth stories. That means they're scrutinizing things like workforce stability. Can you retain to support caregivers in a way that's more sustainable? Documentation discipline. Are your clinical and operational workflows tight enough that risk and rework are minimized? And measurable performance. Can you actually show in the data that your operations are efficient and your outcomes are actually strong? And Robbie talked a little bit about those dashboards in that last section around how your team's really mobilizing around that. So M&A is still very active. The premium is going to go to organizations that can demonstrate operational excellence, not just top line growth. And that's exactly the environment that your organization is building for. And it's why your focus on technology and intelligent workflows and integration has been so central to your actual growth journey. Um, on the slide here for folks, you can see Avid Health at Home's multi-state footprint across 3 states. So, along with the 8 organizations that now sit under the Avid umbrella, each logo represents a local team, a client base, a set of workflows that have been brought into a common operating model. So, when we talk about scaling smarter, this is what it looks like using M&A to build density and presence while relying on strong process and operating models while leveraging technology and intelligent workflows to keep quality, compliance, the caregiver experience consistent that we talked about across a growing and multi-state network, and that's no walk in the park. Um, so before we jump into the growth specific questions, Rob, to give everyone some context, can you start with Avid's origin story? What did you guys set out to build when you launched Avid Health at Home in 2023?
Sure, I'd love to. Our leadership team was just reflecting on those early days. We had launched Avid as a holding company with the blueprint to build a tech-enabled home care agency. We designed an efficient, scalable operating model built on AliveCare and other key tech partners before we made our first acquisition. And then we did a whole series. We were plugging them in and rolling them up into our holding company. We learned from each acquisition, refining our model and expanding upon what we had built. We are organically growing at a healthy rate, adding de novo locations now too, and still closing on new opportunities. As things like AI and integration systems become more practical to implement, we've been able to accelerate the completion of our initial blueprint. And partners like AliveCare have helped us quickly scale and become a provider and a partner of choice.
Awesome. So, Avid has grown quickly, to say the least, including through acquisitions, as we've just highlighted in that last slide. We're actually going to jump into some of the stats in the next section around your actual organization for those on the line. But until then, how does M&A fit into your actual growth strategy? What does that actually look like in practice?
Sure. Well, that's a really big lever for us. We have a team constantly evaluating M&A opportunities. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of opportunities, looking to both increase our existing market share and to expand us into new geographies. We have a very clean playbook that allows us to get through diligence quickly, thoroughly, and we launch a very tight integration process that focuses on supporting the caregivers and the admin staff in the office in training, in support with the new tech they're being exposed to, and helping them integrate their operations into our model.
Hmm. So when does Rob? Maybe you can give for those on the line a little bit of an idea of great. So you've made an acquisition. When does technology actually come into the picture when thinking about integrating this new organization? Like there's a lot going on. You've just closed on this new organization coming in. How do you guys think about that?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, having been through this enough, we know it's a concern, it's a fear that companies are having as when the staff learn about there's going to be an acquisition and someone's coming in and what's it going to be like, and there's nervousness and concern, which is viable and justified. We try to come in being reassuring, being confident, being familiar with where they're coming from, and then to be able to kind of help them see that the tech stack we're moving them into is large, wide, broad, and probably, okay, in all of our experiences thus far, more capable than the one that they were coming out of. And that we're working right along with them. We try to get our teams in there weeks before the actual closing date. And the idea is to be live on Avid day one on all of our systems. And so being able to work within that kind of helps and speed along the transition. So they're getting familiar with it while they're doing their existing work. They're working along with us as well, and it kind of makes it a lot simpler. Having a very standardized operating platform is key, efficiency wise and for growth wise. And we knew this is where we wanted to be from the very beginning. And so, we were familiar with other EMRs in the marketplace and stuff like that, but realizing that we were confident that AliveCare had what we needed both to get started and would continue to support us as we grow and scale. And so, even when we run into unexpected challenges, your teams are able to come alongside and really help us with those processes. So we might be trying to figure things out kind of in the back end, but on the front end, we're looking confident and delivering smooth and helping those folks come on board.
Awesome. You've maybe addressed on a few points related to this, but what did you know you needed from that actual core platform? So you mentioned the core platform that you wanted to grow with, starting small but growing into it as you continue to acquire and maybe move into multiple states. In this case, obviously, eye care. But what were you knowing you needed from that core platform to make this strategy actually viable? And what were your non-negotiables? Like when actually vetting
Mhm.
systems of choice, what were your non-negotiables?
Sure. Well, we needed a robust platform, and that was going to continue to grow and expand. It wasn't finished and done, and it wasn't just building, kind of fluffy, nice, picturey things, but things that were credible and practical. And one that had a strong team of developers, a strong team of integrators who would be able to help us tackle the challenges as we would come up with various things as we you learn about, you only see so much under the hood before you get in there, and then you start finding out, oh, okay, we need a way to adapt to this, and we need a way to accommodate this. We needed a very powerful way to be able to bring information in out of these legacy or soon to be legacy systems, right? And so,
Yep.
Lightcare provides a very robust implementation of that, and so we can really get pretty much anything we want in. And again, so we're working weeks in advance to make sure we've got the latest and greatest data from whatever we have, and sometimes we don't always have great stuff, but we're bringing that all in to be able to make that work well and help that move smoothly. So providing those kind of tools for us was key and huge. I think a good shout out to, you got to mention Care Connector, one of my favorite products you guys have, and your team that supports it. One acquisition we did back in 24 had a very complex and tedious cash application process for one of their major funders. This took up most of the time of a senior staff member the whole week and just what it took to manage this thing. But with the connector's help, we were able to design something that runs less than a minute, and with the whole process just takes a few hours as opposed to the entire week. Having that up and running early on really helped impress the new members of Avid's team and help them buy into the future they were going to have with Avid. So being able to show, demonstrated improvement in process and capability really helps to kind of smooth that along and get them on board quickly and easily. I mean, we don't have we rely on the quality teams of the companies that we're acquiring to be able to take on that
Mhm.
stuff and work on it in the beginning. And so being able to convince them with tangible things that this is going to be good and this is going to be better is a tremendous help.
Incredible. Well, it's a testament to your team's leadership, and as people can hear, you've obviously built a playbook where technology isn't the afterthought, and you guys are finding ways to continue to drive wins for these new markets that you're operating in. Um, well, let's make sure we continue to talk about some integrated tech stack best practices and what that looks like for your team. We talked about why integrated tech is important from an M&A lens earlier, but now I want us to dive into how providers need an integrated tech stack that supports every level of care delivery. So whether that's the family members, circle of care, it's the clients, it's your frontline caregivers, it's your back office operators. Obviously, there's a lot of stakeholders and a lot of people that are your organization and teams are touching as you go through an acquisition. So Avid has been very intentional from everything we've heard in terms of using a wide array of features and integrations to be able to make up that one coherent tech stack rather than a set of disconnected tools. So, some examples you've illustrated or alluded to a few of these, but just to call them out. So, from the Ally Care standpoint, using features like Layla, Ally Care's virtual AI assistant, being used by your care managers to make it easier to summarize visits and client data in a consistent and high quality way to allow them to be prepared before actually even going in to deliver any type of care and have all the context required. Connector, Rob, you just touched on. So as the integration and automation layer around the core system and also how data moves in and out in multiple ways and reduces manual reentry. And on top of that, you've layered on some incredible partner integrations, organizations like TapCheck, Relias, and Activated Insights. So things like earned wage access, training, and experience management are part of the same ecosystem rather than bolt-ons and information that's not speaking to one another. All this comes back to choosing technology that can scale with you across new states, the new programs you go into, and new acquisitions. So instead of something you have to rip and replace every time you actually grow. Um, so let's put some numbers behind the story we've all been talking about here for the last 20 or so minutes. On the slide, you can see a snapshot of Avid's growth on Care. Today, Avid is operating across 3 states with 8 acquisitions brought into a single operating model. They've translated That's translated into significant client census growth, as you can imagine, over 260% growth in 2024 and another 26% growth in 2025, while supporting roughly 100,000 scheduled hours a month. Um, but what's actually important within those data points is how that growth is being managed. You can see a 22% year over year improvement in caregiver caseload efficiency, which tells us the organization isn't just adding volume, which is fine and good, but it's using workflows and technology to help your staff support more clients in a sustainable and repeatable manner, which is really one of our favorite things about all the stats that are on the slide here. And one of the quality and compli- and on the quality and compliance side, Avid is consistently maintaining a visit verification ratio above 95%, which, depending on the state that we're in, depending on different EVV rules, like in Illinois, there may be benchmarks and minimum percentages that are required, and you guys are well above those already, which is amazing. Um, so, with that, when we talk about scaling smarter, uh, you guys are an amazing example of what it looks like, and the numbers show that the multi-state acquisition-driven growth paired with strong efficiency and super tight execution on the ground around how your teams are showing up. Um, Now, a little bit less from me and more hearing from you, Rob. If we zoom in on the day to day and think in terms of the end-to-end workflows, what's an example where multiple features or types of tech work together to remove friction for your teams? What are some examples for you guys?
Well, I think the best example really starts with the AliveCare app, where our caregivers do all their work, both clocking in and out and completing all their documentation. Information from there flows seamlessly into visit verification for payroll and billing, and the documentation is ready to be attached as needed. Billing has so many sub workflows that stem from this, including some with third-party partners like FrontStream. And then when the payments come in, we utilize both the included integrations for applying cash and some custom built scenarios like a connector, like I just mentioned, all of which handle mountains of mind-numbing transactions.
Yeah.
Also, as you mentioned, we utilize activated insights for satisfaction surveys, and their intelligent integration into our client and caregiver database makes this effortless on our part. And we work with TapCheck for same-day pay options for our caregivers, and the data needed moves automatically from AliveCare and our payroll system, leaving us with practically nothing to do in this area. And so
Hey,
where data already exists, it'll only just move by itself to where it needs to go next. We shouldn't have to be picking it up and putting it down and manually or even, in some automated way. We want to be able to get there. We want things to be able to talk and go through. And that's super helpful for making that work and take that friction out and eliminate those human bottlenecks and human reentry errors, right?
absolutely. We've alluded to or mentioned a couple different partners and actually named them by name, but because you've gone through multiple cycles of using different partners and integrations, I'm sure you've learned many lessons about integrated tools along the way. And looking for you to see or tell us a little bit about what you've learned that actually simplifies life for caregivers and office teams instead of adding more clicks or adding another system of record or a system of choice. Talk to us about what you've learned.
Sure. We want to be very careful as we make changes in workflows that, one, we're achieving the leadership team's goals while still simplifying the processes for our caregivers and for our office staff teams. Sometimes that's not easy to do. We need to stop, rethink, and reevaluate how we want to handle a particular instance of change. It's vital for us to have a clear vision of what we want to achieve and to make sure integrations are aligning with that, and that it can be easily explained and understood both by the office staff and by the caregivers. You don't want to frustrate them in the process of doing things. You want them to see either this is simpler or, okay, what we're doing is better. We're gathering better data, we're providing better service, therefore it's worth another click or whatever else it might be. Um, and I think bringing Layla into the workflows for our clinical managers is a great example of simplifying those processes, of summarizing care history for a whole variety of purposes, saving time and improving readability and clarity as well. And the new maximize authorizations feature makes it faster and easier for our scheduling teams to make sure we service every hour the client is authorized for. So making them aware of those improvements. I mean, that one just came out in the last product release, which was wonderful.
Mhm.
But I think folks know about that and celebrating those opportunities here. This is a more efficient way to take care of something that is very important to the organization, and it really facilitates getting it done.
Awesome. Well, a few slides back, I mentioned a few of the pieces in that tech stack. Again, the value comes from that coherent stack that you're alluding to,
Mhm.
and not any one feature in isolation. So, how do you know? How do you know things are working? In other words, how do you measure whether your tech stack is truly supporting your growth versus just keeping up with day to day operations? Like, what's signaling that it's all worth it for you?
So, that's a very thoughtful question. I had to ponder this one for a few minutes to come up with, really to think what's accurate here. I think really first off, are we growing? We have a couple simple KPIs that we use to measure our growth. There's a week over week billable hours and a net growth in client census. And if our tech stack is supporting that growth, then it's making systems work easier for our staff so they can focus their time on the human to human interactions, on problem solving, and on seizing opportunities as they come up. We can look at staff satisfaction surveys. What feedback are we getting from them? How do they feel about the load that they have and what the tools that we've provided for them to do this? And where are they seeing opportunity? Like, why do I have to do this all the time? Isn't there some other way to do this better kind of things? We need to watch out and shout out for those things, right? You want to celebrate those opportunities where people bring something to the forefront. And all that ultimately leads to us being able to look at our staffing ratios. Do our staff have increased capacity to handle more clients and more caregivers? Not just trying to get more out of them per se, but being able to help them do things that are more valuable, more important, more satisfying in the course of their day.
Awesome. And looking ahead, where do you see the next tech opportunities that could drive meaningful impact and move the needle on growth or margin? Either for Avid, like what you're looking at
Mhm.
specifically for your team, or for the broader market. Where do you think that opportunity comes from?
Well, I think, kind of looking at it for both, two major things come to mind. Tools like a Care's connector, which kind of removes limitations in so many ways to being able to do things. We can build automated workflows within Care, and we can create integrations with practically any external system to get it done. Right now, we're putting the finishing touches on a connector scenario that's going to utilize form filled data from Facebook campaigns for new caregivers and send out follow up emails and text. Automating this saves hours and hours every day. It allows our recruiting staff to focus on human to human interaction with those high value leads. And further, it gets a response back to everyone who reaches out to us right away, while Avid is still fresh in their minds with the next step
Mm.
that they can take, right? And all that supports both growth and margin. I think the other obvious use is using AI, particularly, we're focusing on Layla and the line flow agents. These are just very practical tools that are going to shoulder some of the burden for our staff, freeing them up and getting things done faster.
Well, Rob, you've laid a really strong foundation with the stack and integrated stack that you'd built, and as you just alluded to, the next layer you've started to build on top of already that we're excited to see the fruits of is AI and the intelligent workflows. Um, So I'd love to get a quick read on where the audience is at with their own AI journey. On your screen, you should see a poll pop up with this question: how is your organization using AI today? The options are documentation and form automation, translating documents, or language support, caregiver support and training, risk prediction and client insights, scheduling and routing, matching clients with caregivers, or our organization is not currently using AI. We'll give you a few seconds to respond, and we'll take a look at the results together here. Okay, great. Thanks for weighing in. It looks like we've got a spread across a few use cases. Close to half our organization is not currently using AI, and then a pretty even mix between people driving some efficiency with AI through documentation and form automation, scheduling and routing, and matching clients with caregivers. We asked the same question in a recent survey we ran with the Home Healthcare News. So it's interesting to compare those findings in that survey to what we just saw. About 42% of respondents in that earlier survey that I just alluded to said their organization is not currently using AI at all. So pretty aligned with what we just heard. And then among those that are using it, uh, pretty well around the exact same kind of three categories around documentation, caregiver support, and training. So, with that context in mind, a market where a lot of organizations are still early and most AI use cases are very practical and workflow driven. Let's move into the next slide and we'll talk about how we approach AI at AlayaCare and how partners like Avid have helped shape that through products like Layla and AlayaFlow. There's two different references that we've mentioned a couple times. So, what AI looks like at AlayaCare is starting from a simple principle. AI should live inside the workflows that you already rely on in the day to day to run your organization. We think about this in multiple different layers. So embedded intelligence and assistance on the left side of this slide that make everyday tasks easier. So whether that's guidance inside the system, as well as smarter suggestions and maybe some conversational tools. As we continue to move through that journey towards co-pilots, those that sit alongside staff to help with context, maybe documentation or care planning. And then increasingly, that far right side is the move towards agents that can solve and take action on your behalf inside very clearly defined guardrails, things like perhaps reassigning visits, chasing down missed EVV context or details, making that approval process faster and more efficient, or resolving common issues in the background. So, two concrete examples in today's conversation being Layla and AlayaFlow. With Layla, we're focused on making it dramatically easier for caregivers to deliver and document care at the point of care with the right information in front of them and fewer steps to complete the visit. And Rob and team are leveraging that, and he can speak to it. With AlayaFlow, we're introducing AI agents directly into your operational workflows. So, as I mentioned, scheduling, visit verification, and beyond. So, high volume tasks can be handled more autonomously while your team stay in control of the big decisions and also can be alerted when needed to be able to make approvals or what we would call human in the loop escalations. So it's not removing the context or removing the detail, but feeding the information when it's relevant to the right people. Avid has been a great partner in this evolution as we've brought these tools to market. And so when you see innovative features like Layla and LiveFlow on the roadmap or in the product, a lot of that is informed by real world feedback from organizations like Rob's team at Avid, who are using AI not as a buzzword but as a practical tool to scale care more efficiently as they continue to grow. Um, so, um, to speak to your AI strategy and continuing adoption, especially in light of, in many cases, half the organizations we talk to are not doing or haven't maybe made that first step into the use of AI. Um, what initially sparked your interest in AI for Avid? What was that first kind of point of entry for your team, Rob?
Well, as a company founded on the principles of tech-enabled and data-driven AI was always in the plans. I could see potential for operational efficiencies and for data analysis. But you have to remember that 3 years ago when we started, in the AI timeline, that's like a decade or more for anything else, right?
Mhm.
Way back then, AI 3 years ago was expensive, complex to implement, and companies just starting out like us just couldn't really do much with it. But now, look how far things have come in just 3 short years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the speed of change, as we all know, is incredible and quite staggering. Avid has been part of our AlayaFlow early access, and you started to put AI agents to work inside your existing workflows. So, for the audience, can you share some early feedback? What problems are you tackling with the agents to start, and what are you seeing?
Sure, sure. Well, we took on every beta of the agents that AlayaCare offered us, right? So we're working with electronic visit verification, vacant visit scheduling, and care plan creation. We chose an operational or a clinical leader to head up each one of those projects in our organization. Folks particularly who had a great handle on our existing processes and were eager to improve our workflows using agentic AI. We were well into those betas, and each of those leaders and their teams are excited about how it's going. With EVV, our testing has gone very well, and I can see it taking on half or more of the EVV issues that we currently need to handle manually. With care plan creation, our clinical leaders are very pleased with the agent's ability to review our own documentation and make solid recommendations for our care plan libraries. This will save our nurses half an hour at least on each care plan and ensure that nothing is missed. And with vacant visit scheduling, it's helped us think through our workflows in this area. And we are laying out a clear and straightforward way for the agent to interact with our caregivers throughout the life cycle of filling vacant visits.
Awesome. That sounds like you've started with high volume workflows where there's a lot of manual triage today, whether it's the visit verification team or the nurses having to revalidate care plans or visits that are vacant needing to be rescheduled, and you're using those AI agents to handle or getting to the point of being able to use them for a bunch of the heavy lifting, while still keeping humans in control of the actual key decisions, which is obviously integral. When you think about the future um, of agentic AI and intelligent or even autonomous workflows, where do you see the most promise for home-based care organizations like Avid?
Sure. AI can assist staff by taking on repetitive and simple tasks, freeing them up to handle the people interactions and the more challenging parts of their jobs. The best staff in the business will need the best tools so they can do what they're passionate about, caring for their clients and their caregivers with excellence. We believe that this will result in higher job satisfaction and be a strong retention factor for those key individuals. Clearly, companies that provide and properly integrate agentic AI will find a competitive advantage in their markets. Further, I believe that the successful implementation of agentic AI is necessary as we move into the implementation of intelligent and autonomous workflows. First, having a track record of good feedback from the humans in the loop will make those agents reliable, capable, and trusted. And those agents are the building blocks of those more autonomous workflows. Second, as the industry gets comfortable with reliable agents, that will set the stage for acceptance of those more autonomous workflows. When those AI-driven workflows need to check in for guidance and approval less and less often, a whole other level of efficiency and scaling opportunity will be unlocked. I read an article just today in Home Healthcare News from their Capital Strategy Conference last week, discussing how some home care leadership is starting to see AI as more reliable than their actual human staff. Having
Mm.
conversations like that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago.
Yeah. Wow. Pretty incredible.
Mm.
So practically speaking, how are you thinking about some of these learnings? Like we've talked about what you're seeing so far to start in the betas. We talked a little bit about where you're thinking about the future and where agentic AI is going to provide opportunity. But practically speaking, how are you thinking about rolling those learnings out across your entire organization? As people can imagine, in a lot of these projects, you start small,
Mhm.
you refine, and then you continue to scale with the rollout of them. But how do you roll these learnings out across the entire organization, and what does change management look like when you're introducing AI driven workflows, especially perhaps to people who are maybe uncomfortable with the change that's presented to them?
Yep, I think that's kind of like, maybe that's the baby elephant in the room with these kind of
Yeah.
things, right? The buzz about it, AI is everywhere around us, and not all that buzz is positive. There's probably staff, in our organizations who are fearful or resistant to that, and we need to address that carefully. Um, Going back to the way we're rolling out our betas, right? So those operational and clinical leaders who are running them, were chosen with this in mind. They'll be the experts who take each of these agents across all of our offices and all of our states and implement them in whatever particular way. I mean, not all of our business is exactly the same, so there's going to
Mm.
be some nuances there. Um, but these folks are key leaders in our organization. Our senior leadership trusts them to be rigorous and honest during the beta testing, and so far they've been very excited with what they've seen. They're also well respected across our organization, so that as they lead these implementations, their credibility will help to support this use of AI. Change management is something we deal with regularly, and our teams are used to that. But agentic AI presents some unique challenges. We need to demonstrate to our teams that these are tools to help them handle their simpler tasks and to give them more time to handle challenges and to focus on opportunities to grow. Hearing from other staff who have already worked with the agents will help, and our senior leadership has a good history of honest and reliable communications with our staff. We haven't given them a reason to not believe what we say about other things, so why would they not believe what we say here? We mean what we say, and we say what we mean. We've been foreshadowing these changes for a little while now, and our teams are very excited about what's coming.
Awesome. You guys are obviously very, very thoughtful in your approach and how your teams are getting brought into the fold early, giving transparency and clarity around what the next steps are. And so I love that balance between the ambition and pragmatism that you've stated, and starting with real operational problems, and then scaling what actually works. So with that, let's bring the audience into the conversation with our Q&A. Okay, so a few directed to you, Rob, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So the first open question. Thanks for submitting it. Are you leveraging AI in the M&A valuation process? How are you looking at potential targets, and whether they are or are not using AI up to this point? And that might be a question that changes week to week, day to day, month to month.
Well, I'll send you my NDA, and after you sign, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I think, AI is part of our processing the data and ingesting the information that we get and receive. We're planning out how we would build models to analyze that data and to kind of provide us with early, results on what we'd be looking at and what are the key things. So I'd say we are not there yet. That's in our pipeline, but certainly utilizing the tools for ingestion has been very helpful.
Awesome. Do you mind answering? We got a question here related to what's one integration, and you've pointed to a few of them, but maybe this
Mhm.
question being a little bit more direct, Rob will change your answer. But what's one integration or workflow change that delivered more impact than you expected? So maybe whether it's thinking about connector or some type of integration, but if you were to name one integration or workflow change that delivered more impact than you expected, what would you say?
That surpassed expectations. Let's see.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
well, I already used my favorite example, which was that cash application thing. So let me see what else. I think the with one of those partners, their earlier integration, the third party with like here, was okay, but not robust. And what and it was good enough, and so we started with it, right? But I think on both parts, both Lancare and on that third party, their interest in making it better persisted. And when we went with the second iteration of implementation, like the problems that we had were gone, the need to get involved was gone, the calls to customer support from our users were gone, and I kind of almost resigned myself kind of to where we were, and that just was eliminated. I appreciated the ongoing connection going on back and forth, and so the products I mentioned, all have very seamless and effortless integrations at this point, and that was a unexpected pleasure.
awesome. Well, I'm keep an eye on time for
Yes.
any of the Q&A questions that we haven't answered. Rest assured, we will absolutely follow up post webinar. Um, Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a couple of resources that can help you keep some of the momentum going that Rob and I have talked about. So first, our AI Resource Hub brings together webinars, blogs, and practical guides on AI, agentic workflows, and automation in home-based care. We want to be able to provide actionable context and resource that can help you in your day-to-day. Second, a quick save the date for everyone on the line today. On Thursday, April 16th at 2 p.m. Eastern, we're hosting a roundtable style webinar on caregiver first technology to retain and support caregiver staff. We'll be joined by like your partners, Navon and Checked in Care, to chat through how caregiver first mobile tools, smart scheduling, integrated training can reduce burnout, decrease admin burden, and create a better day to day experience for your frontline. You should see a poll to pre-register pop up on your screen that you can leverage now. And with that, thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Please take 2 minutes to fill out the post webinar survey. We really appreciate your time, and until next time, take care.
Bye bye.